Voila. So let me bring up my table of contents. Here it is. So we'll have a look at these topics today. I hope if there's any issues with the audio or the screen, just let me know in between. Any questions, feel free to interrupt on the spot. So first of all, obviously, we'll take a look at the OpenStreets data model, which is our main kind of data repository. A very powerful thing, as it's like a public system that's any changes we make that is seen worldwide. So it makes much more sense than creating yet another private mobile app or private database that will only be visible to very few people. You'll see there are a lot of viewers, mobile apps for OpenStreetMaps, editors, so a little bit more difficult to use, not for the common public actually. We'll take a look at hiking routes and specifically how we generally plan hiking routes using GPS files or other types of sources that I've been using in the last couple of years to plan my Himalayan journeys. And then very important, I've done a lot of work in the recent months during the lockdown on maps of the Himalayas, although the Himalayas are very less documented. You got some really nice maps out there, not overall, but specific zones like say Ladakh or HP or UK, which have different map sources. So if you put it all together, you get pretty nice coverage. In addition to that, you have some data stores, like we discussed the NGA, you have some Alpine Clubs, you have the Indian Mountaineering Foundation. We have some nice databases actually, like of peaks, passes, lakes, human populations. You saw 40,000 villages of the NGA database. And finally, we'll take a look at some of the things you can do in GIS tools like QGIS. QGIS is a freeware tool. You have other tools like ArcGIS, which is quite popular. So most of the demo anyway, I'm going to use QGIS because most of the above can be easily integrated and demonstrated through this beautiful tool. QGIS is a little more complicated. I'm using it to map villages also, but I didn't want you guys having to install too many tools to do the mapping. So just we did it through JOSN. Okay, let's take a look at OpenStreetMaps. So if you look at OpenStreetMaps, what is it? So you have here the standard view, but if you first look at the definition, so OpenStreetMap is basically like a public domain collaborative project, so which basically describes the world. We are going to use it mostly for the wild, for the outdoors, for the mountains, less populated areas, no roads, not too many settlements, most likely trails, and in our case, most like terrain, like forests, glaciers, passes, lakes, all those things for which OSM is actually pretty rich, I would say, compared to Google. Google Maps is pretty nice if you want to navigate from your home to the bus stop or to the airport in the city. But once you're actually at the end of the road or at the last village in the valley, Google will simply show a blank screen, right? Google is more focused on advertising, so they don't get too much of ads revenue from documenting the wild mountains. Okay, so standard OSM viewer is this osm.org. So there you get, the standard map view, pretty plain, not that rich. So here you go, voila. I think we're already looking at part of the Himalayas, and we can already see all those villages that we have been mapping recently. Previously, this was a little bit blank, but now thanks to our efforts, we'll see a lot of small villages, hamlets, and isolated places. You can already see some kind of roads, but that's also it mostly for the Himalayas. Apart from the main roads, which you can also see on the Survey of India maps, if you really get inside the green zones, the forest, you will see very less on OpenStreetMaps yet. So that's where we will come in and plan more. In contrast, if you go a little bit east towards, like say, here in Nepal, I think here we should be in Nepal. If you go to Nepal there, because a lot of Europeans trek there, I guess, there you'll see quite an extensive network of trails also. Maybe if we go a bit lower here. Not yet. I just was looking yesterday at some parts of Nepal. Voila, at least here and there you can see some of the trails, you can see shelters along the way, campsites, passes and stuff. So as you go to certain areas, you see quite good coverage in Europe, in the Alps, in Nepal. The mountains are pretty nicely described up to the trail level, campsite level, pass level in OpenStreetMaps. So that will actually be the purpose of our project, to also describe the Indian Himalayas, more specifically the Western Himalayas in more detail. Okay, so when we talk about, say, the Western Himalayas, let's take a peek. So I'm gonna use QGIS for most of my demo, as I can also bring OpenStreetMaps in this tool. Okay, and I think that's okay. Sometimes it will crash. Let me save this one. Okay, so let's hide everything and let's just, voila. Here again, we're looking at the base OpenStreetMap. So our focus will be on the Western Himalayas, which again, in OSM, you have everything pretty clearly mapped, including this. In this case, we see the district boundaries. So the Western Himalayas here from the border of Nepal, Uttarakhand, then here you have Himachal, you will have Ladakh here, and then Jammu and Kashmir finally is kind of spread out over some, if I show the count, over some 39 districts here. Right, and so we're gonna describe this place basically, which is normally pretty blank by default, except for the state, the national highways, the main towns. Up till now, the place was pretty empty. So let's take a look when we talk about mapping. What exactly are we gonna map in OSM from a mountain from a hiking point of view? So I made a couple of notes here of what is relevant. OSM is a pretty extensive system, obviously, right? You map streets and you map cities and you map buildings. So from a hiking point of view, these are gonna be the tags here that I'm kind of summarized here. So roads are described with a tag called highway. Highways is equal to, right? So if we go to, let me also start our JOSM so we can pick out, we can pick out some specific objects from OpenStreetMaps in parallel. So if you look in road-related objects in OpenStreetMaps, are going to be described with the tag highway is equal to. So this is used for all roads, all the way from international to national highway, state highway, district road, all the way to the places that the road type of routes that we will be interested will be like paths, tracks. Tracks is like a four-wheel dirt track. Footway is like more like a walkable path, like steps and proper walking path. And then a path is more like a trail, right? So, and all these trails will have additional interesting tags or attributes in OSM, like surface. You'll see whether it's a dirt, whether it's you're walking on moraines, glacier, ice, ground, whether it's soil. It will actually give you a difficulty of the trail, which is quite nice. They will use the standard. There will be a little bit of drilling in between. Electrician is speaking. Let me also bring up. If you look at the highway object here, right, you can see this is a road actually. Here they marked it as unclassified. Unclassified means it's not a state highway, it's not a district highway, it's somewhere a bit of a basic village road. The surface is asphalt, so it's a tar road. So these are the kind of ways that people describe roads and then eventually also trails in the system. In addition to the places that we have already been working with extensively. You can also see those boundaries here. These are like different level of boundaries, as we'll see. We'll come to that in a second, by the way. Let's go one by one. Two important attributes of from a trail point of view, not from a tar road, obviously, is the scale. This is basically the difficulty scale and the visibility. So if you go in the mountains in the Himalayas, sometimes the trail is very clear, sometimes the trail is almost invisible. So they have a rating for that. which makes it easy for hikers, obviously, to plan, right? You can pick something easy, visible trail, or you can take a demanding mountain hiking trail. Suck is a standard Alpine scale of difficulty 1 to 5. Demanding mountain hike level 3 with like an intermediate visible trail. So if you look at this, so I can either go to this OSM, or I can go to JOSN and load one by one, which is a little bit cumbersome. Or I can show you in my QGIS here, where I've already queried some of these objects from OSM. So if I look at the highway path here, you can see there are some amount of trails already mapped in the Himalayas here. Most of the bigger ones you see here have been mapped by me. If you look at what was available existingly, you can see a lot of junk here, kind of a lot of partially mapped trails, a lot of small little trails here and there. So not very kind of clean not as clean as a proper hiking map, which shows nice continuous trails to go from one part of the mountain to the other one. So to clean up all this noise, actually, everyone has been contributing little trails, little places and stuff around the places where they live. But to clean this up a little, there is a different concept in OSM called a route. This is basically a relationship. So a route is one type of relation which basically groups other types of objects, in this case highways, paths basically that make a continuous hiking traverse. So there are different types of routes. You have hiking routes, you have cycling routes, other types of routes. This is actually specifically used for hiking. So hiking routes, if you want to have a look at those things, you can go to something called like waymarked trails. It's called like waymarked trails. So where you basically hide all these individual loose pieces of trail, and you basically create like a beautiful map of hiking trails. Hiking routes will actually be graded at 4 different levels. If you zoom out, you will see what we call the red ones. The red one was the intercontinental. So here we're looking at the Alps, where you have an extensive hiking network. We'll have the international, the intercontinental hiking routes, the red ones. The blue ones on the national level hiking routes. And as you zoom into Europe, if we zoom in a little bit here on the Alps or on Germany, I guess, and you can see the national. Once you zoom in further, you will see the orange ones. These are like the regional hiking routes, which are not shown at the top level zoom level, as it would become too congested. And as you zoom in further, you can see the local hiking routes. So these are like small hiking routes from one village to another. So you can see in Europe, it's beautiful. I mean, we're still looking at OpenStreetMaps here, but the amount of detail you see here, the peaks, the trails, the labeling of the routes, you have every trail has a number or a symbol. The grading of the trails, like local versus regional versus then national here versus international, is really amazing. If you look at the world, you'll have also pretty good mapping of some of the Pacific Crest Trail here on America. On the right side, you might have parts of the Appalachian Trail. South America, Patagonia, some beautiful trails in the Andes. And of course, obviously, Nepal used to be, here you have the Great Himalayan Great Himalayan Trail, I guess, going from east to west Nepal. India used to be completely empty until a couple of months back. I kind of mapped the hiking routes beautifully, only picking out specific of these noisy trails here, little pieces here and there, and basically cleanly mapping continuous traverses of trails that connect all the way from Kashmir basically to Uttarakhand. You can see the Dolador range here, beautiful trails. I've marked them as national. District, a state in India is equal to a city, I mean a country, sorry, in Europe. A couple of regional trails here in the Dolador above Dharmasala. So giving them a nice tag, if you click on each of these, you get some nice details also. Let's say, for example, IP, you might be familiar with the Indrahar Pass. You can download the GPX file directly out of OpenStreetMaps. You can show the elevation profile, which shows you like the steepness basically starting at somewhere Dharmakot here near McLeod Gang. So that 2,000 meter you climb up to somewhere 4,400 meter near the Indrahar Pass here on the Dolador. Then you go through this blue zone. This blue zone is a glacier basically, and you get down again on the Chamba Valley. Right, so mapping nicely the hiking routes, like we call them in OSM, is very critical, because this is a kind of clean hiking map that is going to draw independent hiking, that is going to draw the international hiking community to any place in the world. Okay, okay, yeah. So we're here. So these were the hiking routes. So so here you can
Can't hear you, Peter.
I think now it should be better. The drilling is done.
Yeah.
And we are fixing a couple of light bulbs. So the blue ones you saw are the national level routes, which I tag basically with national. So if you look at if you look at JOSM here, if I pick out maybe one of those routes, okay, I think this is the Dolador. If you zoom in a little on the Dolador, and I think at least this is the Dolador. Yeah, Dharmasala. I pick out some of these trails across the Dolador here, for example, this, right? This is the highway path. You can see the SAC scale again. Indrahar Pass is quite steep, so it's marked as level 3, level 4, demanding alpine hiking. It's soil type, visibility is intermediate, and the weight of the trail you can mention. And then you can see it's part of this relationship called the route. So if I edit it, you can see this is now a route, an OSM relation, the type, sorry, let me show a little bit more OSM text. So the type of relation is routes, and the type of route is hiking. It could also have been something else. I've given it a nice label like IIND to distinguish it from other routes. More information you can find on my blog here. I've given it a name. It's called the National Level Hiking Network. And here you can see all these individual OSM trails, the highway objects that are part of this relationship, that are part of this route relationship. So you can see it's a little bit more complicated, these kind of things in OSM, but it's very powerful. It's the beauty, it's a universal data model. It's standardized along the world. So whether you're going to South America, you're going to Australia, you're going to Europe, you're going to Nepal, everywhere in the world, the hiking routes are mapped universal, which is an extremely powerful concept, rather than having the wikiloc, than having another application, another private database, all mapping it differently. Voila. You can also see again, as we go to other objects, then let's go a little bit. The landscape. So if you look at here again, OpenStreetMaps, you have different types of landscapes. You have rock landscapes here. You have this white objects. This is actually a glacier. You can see it's a natural feature. The type of natural feature is glacier. What's up with my combo box here? Voila, you have rocks, you have beaches, you have coastlines, you'll have meadows, grasslands, you'll have muds. You'll also have peaks, you have water bodies, you'll have saddles, you'll have screes, loose rocks, and you will also have wood. Wood basically markets a forest type of region in the Himalayas. So by mapping all these different terrains, OSM can beautifully render the corresponding landscape. So if you go here again and you zoom in a little bit, voila. If you go to the same Indrahar Pass, this is Gaj Pass, yeah, Indrahar is a bit to the right here, voila. So if you go and OSM nicely highlights this glacier here, which we have been marked in a different color. OSM will mark all these natural equal to woods. These are forest zones. These will be mapped in green. All the zones which are not tagged as anything or marked in standard colors You can also mark like farmlands. Of course, these are natural places. If you talk about human landscapes, then we use another tag called land use. Land use, humans can also plant forests, farmlands. These will be typically the kind of cultivation lands that we'll find around the hamlets we have been mapping. And then residential, you have already seen many of the villages you have mapped are in these kind of rectangles. I mean, these areas which have already been marked, I think, automatically by using satellite imagery. They identify these these kind of residential areas where all the homes of the village are located. Voila. So these are all like very interesting objects, obviously, to render our maps, and also to carry along with us offline when we navigate in the field, to understand where we step on the glacier, where we step on the loose scree, where we step on the meadow, where we step in certain mountain ranges. So these are like what we call like areas, like continuous areas. You also have a couple of point natural elements. These are like peaks and saddles, basically, and as well as lakes. Natural equal to water, and then if you specify it further, you can mark it as a lake, you can mark it as a pond, you can mark it as a human reservoir. Voila, rivers are marked, waymarked rivers, either a big river or a stream. So if you look at the Himalayas again, if I, for example, highlight all the OSM rivers and streams here, you get like an extensive network of streams and rivers, basically, all nicely tagged with the name. So very useful again for hikers, right? Most of the hikes we do are in valleys or ridges. So knowing where the streams are is obviously important for navigation as well as drinking water. Okay. So other things is, of course, the human settlements, which we have in map extensively. I don't need to explain these. Again, leveled at different major level, smaller village, small farming hamlet, or a completely small isolated dwelling settlement. Mountain passes are also very useful, especially in the Himalayas. A little bit less, I would say, in Europe, but especially in the Himalayas, where you have these big mountain ranges that you can only cross using passes. It's pretty interesting to kind of map these mountain passes. So again, if we go to the Dolador here, this entire range of 4,000 meter high, peaks connected, you can see there are so many passes that cross the Dolador from the Kangra plains on the north, sorry, on the south here, to the Chamba Valley on the north of the Dolador. See lots of passes, including Indrahar, which is quite touristic, Bimga Sutra, Gaj, Minkani, Baleni, beautiful passes that basically you can see the trails here. You'll have quite a bit of trails actually in OpenStreetMaps already, again, where a lot of European crowd goes, like the area around Leh Ladakh, like Dharmasala, some parts of some famous parts of Uttarakhand. Oh shit, I think we have this 40 minutes limits in free Zoom, so we might have to resort after every 40 minutes, not a big deal. So you can see, right, the trail basically goes over the Dolador, and where it touches the highest point, you're basically going over the pass, as they call it. Pass is typically in a saddle. It's basically between two low points, two surrounding peaks. If I show the peaks, natural is equal to peak, voila. You have these peaks in between. And then you also have the lakes here. Natural equal to water, water equal to lake will be like big water, famous water bodies. Lakes are pretty interesting. They're nice hiking destinations and mostly considered as holy by the local people. So typically target of annual pilgrimage, usually in the month of April and September, when the passes are free of snow. You can see a lot of lakes here in the Dolador. Lamdal is very famous, annual Yatra, end of August. Many people from Dharmasala, McLeod Gang cross the Gaj Pass to get into this valley here. Lamdal again, it gives way birth to the Balini Nala, a stream that flows then eventually into the forest. Here you can see the forest zone. There is a trail that goes also in parallel with the Balini Nala. and finally come into the main Ravi River Valley, which is the Chamba Valley. So beautifully described and much more detail. If you open a Google map in this place, you will actually see a complete blank. You will not see anything. Okay, what else do we have then at the final level? Useful. I mean, there are like hundreds of objects in OpenStreetMaps, but useful from a hiking point of view, obviously, are bridges to cross streams. Sometimes you have to cross the stream without a bridge, which is called fording through the water. And then, of course, a lot of shelters. We have already seen on the Survey of India map the places of worship, the temples, wilderness huts, a couple of human-made things like campsites, guest houses, alpine huts. And then, as we saw, we also have these geopolitical boundaries like district level. If you look at, again, the districts here, very all country level, continental level. Okay, voila, there we go. So here you can see all the districts, and if I remove the passes, the peaks, say for example the lakes, so you can kind of map any element, the trails or cities or villages district-wise. If there are really too many passes, say 1,000 passes or 700 lakes, and across the Himalayas, you can publish also individual maps of individual districts. Voila. So I can also bring out here the names of the districts. I can show like a label here, name, and yeah, I can bring up the label. So here you see voila, the different districts in the Western Himalayas. So just like districts I also have, so these are like human-made. You also have the natural mountain ranges, which basically show the same Himalayas again, but now more from a natural range point of view. So different ranges like the Great Himalayan Range, the Zanskar Range, the Ladakh Range. And then here we have more like towards Pakistan, Karakoram Range. We have here in Uttarakhand, you might know Nanda Devi, Kumaon, Garhwal sections and all that stuff. So this is another interesting way to look at the passes and the trails, rather than looking at that, at all these things in terms of thousands and hundreds. It's sometimes nice to just publish district level maps. So you can see lots of data is already there, from terrains to trails to human settlements to natural terrain to lakes to mountain passes, right, to hiking routes, all beautifully described using these OSM elements. I'll also share this in our WhatsApp group, so you can also take a look at this by yourself through JOSM or through any map viewer. Voila, enough about OSM, let's continue. In case we get kicked out by Zoom, guys, just zoom in, reconnect again. I'll restart the session then. So one other very popular viewer is OpenTopoMap.org. So normally, you know, OpenStreetMaps, you don't get these topographic lines in OpenTopo. This is a German viewer. It's also based on OpenStreetMaps. You get like a beautiful rendering with hill shading. Shading basically gives a more three-dimensional view. So if I, for example, here, sorry, let me look at Kaliheni Pass. That's a nice one. Kaliheni Pass. You can search on any of the village names, the hamlets you have entered. The OSM database is also fully searchable, so very powerful. So here we go to the Kaliheni Pass, which connects Kulu Manali to the Chamba Valley here, Bala Bengal. So if we zoom in a little, voila, here we can see the trail appearing finally. Here we see the Kaliheni Glacier on the left side. Some of these applications are under pretty heavy stress. Voila, you can see lakes, you can see the trail, and then along this trail also you can see like these shepherd shelters which are there. So these are the ones that I mentioned, right, in the thing here. These will be like guest houses or alpine huts or shelters. All this information makes it quite useful because, right, if you here you have another shelter. Shelter is mostly used by shepherds. All this information makes it very, nice to plan a journey, not just the pass, the start and the end village, but you can also see the steepness of the terrain here with the contour lines. You can see where you're stepping on the glacier. You can see where you get down and where you eventually will get into the green zone in the forest again as you go to the lower Himalayas. So pretty useful information in OpenStreetMaps. Waymarked trails we already saw, right? The waymarked trails is basically the one that shows the trails at a pretty high level. So this is something very useful basically if you want to get an overview. If you look at any OpenStreetMap viewer, like say a standard OSM, if you zoom in at a certain level, all the trails will disappear. So now we're looking at here the whole of Chamba and Dharmasala and the Piri Panjal range, a little bit of Lahore. You absolutely see zero here. You don't see any trail, you don't see any pass. Only when you kick, even now you don't see anything. Only when you zoom in at a certain level, you will see the trails appearing. So you never actually get a clear overview using standard OSM viewers. That's why these tools like the waymarked trail viewer here is very useful, because you have a clear overview even at a Himalayan level, at the state level. You clearly see where the trails are. And as you zoom in deeper and deeper, you will see the regional trails coming and the local trails. So this gives you a much more crisper view, plus the ability, you'll have some information here on, again, the elevation profile and how much climb is there, how much descent is there, where you are starting from. You can download GPX files. Just a second, I'm getting a call. Sandeep? Yeah, I'll check in a while. I'm in a meeting now, Sandeep. Yeah. How is it? It's nicely working now? Oh, okay, cool, good. I'll take a look in a while now. Cool. Okay. All right, so just be aware of that. Just like in Google, where you zoom out at a certain level, you actually, the trails actually start disappearing. So if you look at an India level, even the regional roads fade out and you can only see then the national highways. So similar to that with waymarked trails, you have like the state highway trails, the national highway trails, you can say, and the district level trails. So which allows this waymarked trails to render the trail map much more comprehensively. As of now, we have 300 trails defined, hiking routes, OSM hiking routes defined over the Western Himalayas connecting Nepal with Kashmir. Obviously, this is much less. There's a lot of mapping to be done. But again, we can only do that after we record the trails. We can only upload accurate trails on OSM, not just anything we get from any map out there. Voila, that's a little bit of OpenStreetMaps. The same, here we're looking at map viewers, but you have a lot of applications like say OSM, OSMAnd, OSM from Android. Very useful applications for navigation on the phone. The beauty about OpenStreetMaps, I would say, compared to